Greetings, cucks and fucks. It is I, obviously Jesus, here with your first Patreon video for the month of December 2017. The last month of what has been a very certainly shitty and terrible year for basically everyone on the planet. Women, men, orange Cheeto men who happen to be elected president. No one's having a really good time at all. Just basically, I think we're all going to be pretty glad to have this year behind us, and so I'm going to do my part in helping speed that along by making this video. Of course, it makes no fucking difference to time whether or not I make this video, but I'm trying to be poetic, and I'm also very tired. But the benefit is that when I'm very tired, my thoughts come out hopefully very much more clearly than they usually do, because my brain is running on just that right amount of power for me to say exactly what I want to say and hopefully not ramble too much, because I want to go the fuck to bed. So anyway, I just got out of the shower, as I almost always do before I make videos, because I'm a grubby piece of shit whenever I don't have to do anything. But yeah, let's get through this video. But this video is actually not going to be about anything that happened this year. It's going to be about what happened last year. And I guess, in a way, what happened last year and how things that are being revealed this year affect our perception and, you know, inform our reactions to what happened last year. And of course, I am talking about the 2016 American presidential election, in which Orange Cheeto Man defeated Wall Street shill Hillary Clinton and became Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States. It still feels disgusting to say, despite the fact that it has been almost a year of his tenure. I guess the plus side is that this year has gone by pretty fast. That's probably just because I'm aging, but you know, hopefully he'll be out of there in 4 years. But anyway, what I want to talk about in reference to the 2016 election today is the idea that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in such a meaningful way that it swung the vote from Hillary to Donald Trump. And there's a lot of different things that are wrong with this idea. There's a lot of bullshit surrounding all of these different claims and, you know, rebuttals that people put out there when they say, oh, Russia interfered with the US elections. That means Donald Trump is basically a Russian puppet. And I will start off by saying that I do believe, without a doubt, honestly, at this point, based on what's been revealed, that Donald Trump was Vladimir Putin's absolute favorite candidate, not only because he probably disliked Hillary Clinton from his time interacting with her when she was Secretary of State, but also because it puts Russia in a very, very good position as one of the world's major superpowers, as it does, you know, China, and as it does, you know, North Korea, to have a president in the White House in the United States who is sort of dim and unhinged and inexperienced and can be easily manipulated, as you can see just by his Twitter feed. I don't think it is at all up for debate that Donald Trump can be very easily manipulated simply by small slights to his public persona, to his ego. He is very easy to basically trigger and turn into, you know, the emotional state that you want, which is irrationality and anger. So I don't think it's, you know, any secret at this point, based on what's been revealed, that Russia had a horse in this American race. I'm sure they always have, of course, but I think they really went all out on it, seeing an opportunity to try and really reach out and use, for example, WikiLeaks as a tool to influence American opinions in this election. Now, I say they tried to do this because, honestly, this is one of those situations where it takes two to tango, but I want to talk about WikiLeaks here for just 1 second. Honestly, I don't know precisely where the shift in consciousness happened around WikiLeaks. I mean, before this whole Russia election thing, I mean, maybe a little bit before, I had heard the opinions change as well. But before, like years back, when I was doing YouTube for the first time originally, before I left, so that would have been like 2011, 2012, when WikiLeaks was still, you know, in its prime, I was under the impression always that people were heavily in favor of WikiLeaks, heavily in favor of what they were doing for the cause of government transparency, and I would have put them, you know, at some point as like a social or societal precursor, basically, to the actions of Edward Snowden, who is still as far as I'm concerned, considered a pretty good, decent person who was just trying to do what's right by most people. But so it's weird to me that, especially now and a little bit before now, like back last year when all this was happening and a little bit before then even, that public consciousness has shifted about WikiLeaks. And honestly, I don't really have any opinion on this. I just am so sort of blindsided by where it came from, because one moment it felt like WikiLeaks was basically on the same level as Snowden, basically the precursor to all these big, government transparency dumps and whatnot, doing the work of, doing the Lord's work, so to speak, in terms of disclosing information that governments would find embarrassing and want to keep private. And then suddenly, I don't know where it happened, like I said, but suddenly everybody is starting to just believe the allegations of rape made against Julian Assange. People used to say, I remember distinctly, everybody, of all political leanings who supported this more populist government transparency movement, everybody said, oh, it's just a trumped up charge that they were going to try to use to extradite him back to Sweden or Switzerland or where the fuck he's from, so that they can extradite him then to the US for the crimes he committed with WikiLeaks. I always thought, up until very recently, that that was basically the public perception of that rape charge that was against Julian Assange, that it was a mechanic politically to get him back into a country that had an extradition treaty in the to the U.S. So it is weird for me that everybody has seemingly turned on WikiLeaks and now believes that charge, and basically says that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks are Russian puppets. But when you look at their actions and when you look at what's been revealed recently with how they were all constantly trying to reach out to the Trump campaign through Donald Trump Jr. specifically, I believe it was, who was communicating with someone from WikiLeaks. When you look at that, it is pretty obvious that WikiLeaks at some point did turn into a Russian puppet. It just came out of nowhere for me. But anyway, the idea that Russia colluded with the Trump campaign to try to provide them with damaging information on Hillary Clinton in order to influence the American elections is, as far as I'm concerned, not up for debate. What is up for debate as part of that, I think, is whether or not Donald Trump and his campaign and his cronies basically knew what was happening, or if they just thought that, because honestly, I could go either way. I could think that there were people in the Trump campaign who were so, politically motivated and mastermind-like that they would actively go seek out Trump or information on Hillary Clinton to help the Trump campaign. But I also can just as easily believe that Donald Trump and his compadres, so to speak, his hombres, as he would say, his good hombres, I believe that they would also just believe that they were so much in the right in terms of their own political beliefs that they would just say, oh yeah, this other foreign government is trying to help us because obviously we're the clear good choice for America. So I honestly have no idea whether or not they were, doing it in full cynic mode, knowing what they were doing, knowing, the collusion that was going on, or if they just thought that, these people are coming out of the woodwork to try to help us because it's our time now. So I have no idea whether or not the Trump campaign was doing it out of malice or just out of, self-aggrandizement. But I think, like I said, it is really not up for debate anymore that Russia attempted to have some hand in this election. And it's a big thing, though, and it becomes a problem. It becomes an extreme problem when Democrats and liberals and progressives all start talking about Russia, though, because here's the thing. The crux of this video and the argument I'm going to make here is that the more we blame Russia, the more we put the blame on Vladimir Putin trying to influence things, to have basically a puppet in the White House who is more amenable to his, political leanings and whatnot, the more we put the blame there and, throw our money on that horse, so to speak, it does two things. The first thing it does is it devalues the Democratic Party's opinion of the American people in the eyes of the American people. If the American people are, in the eyes of Democrats, people who are so stupid that they can be influenced by Russian propaganda, that does not bode well for 2020 and future elections, because the more the Democrats hop on this, this Russia collusion, Russia investigation train, nobody is staying. Nobody has ever said or put forth on any side of the aisle or on any part of the political spectrum that Russia actually manipulated vote tallies in any specific instances or in any swing states or in any places that would have switch the result of the election numerically. For fuck's sake, Hillary won the popular vote. Nobody's contending that Russia actually influenced vote tallies. So it comes down to the fact that Democrats, the more they get behind this Russia scandal type deal, they're really just putting fuel on the fire that, oh yeah, Americans are stupid and are easily influenced by the Russian propaganda and the Russian, fake news that was out there trying to discredit Hillary Clinton. So that's a problem because, again, it really doesn't bode well for future elections if the Democrats have hitched their cart to this horse where, yes, they're trying to implicate Trump in what is basically treason for the short-term victory of getting him out of office, only to replace him with Pence. And if Pence goes, then they replace him with Paul Ryan. And I don't think Paul Ryan is implicated in the collusion because he wasn't really, part of the Trump transition team as Speaker of the House. So, the best case scenario is we get Paul Ryan, who is, I suppose, more of a traditional politician and kind of wimpy, but I think that is very dangerous for the Democrats and the liberals and progressives and people on all, different parts of the left to put their cart on that horse because it basically erodes their trust with the American people. And now I will be the first to admit that the American people are not the smartest electorate in the world by far. They tend to have views that are very lacking in nuance. They need everything broken down into a red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat type system in order for them to truly consume and understand and even feign getting behind it. Otherwise, they just go completely nuts and get lost in the nuance, not necessarily even because they are unintelligent themselves, but because the American political system is so, rooted into this two-party system that even if people did develop nuanced views, as I think is happening more and more so over the years, even if they did develop that nuanced view, the Electoral College and the just general structure of American politics in and of itself, combined with the fact that there's no laws like there are in the UK against perpetual campaigning, that, it just doesn't allow for any kind of wiggle room or nuance. At the end of the day, you have to pick either the red box or the blue box to put your shit in. Basically, in your shit in this case, I guess, is your hopes and dreams and aspirations for the future and, what you want for your children. But that is the essence of American politics, I think. And, for Democrats to come out and say then that the American people are extremely stupid and are easily influenced, it honestly doesn't even make sense with the numerical aspect of the equation because Hillary, like I just said, won the popular vote by a few million. So there's obviously people out there who are not buying into that Trump bullshit. So then, it puzzles me why the Democrats are hitching their wagon to, I really like that metaphor for some reason right now, but they are hitching their wagon to the Russia thing when what they really should be hitching their wagon to, if anything, is the Electoral College if they wanted to tackle something. Because again, if Hillary had just been allowed to win on the basis of the popular vote, we wouldn't be in any of these messes that Donald Trump would have, or is putting us in at this very moment. So I understand that it is desirable maybe to get the president impeached, get the vice president impeached, and maybe have a little bit more wiggle room and a little bit more room to fight in these next 2 years with like somebody lame and stupid like Paul Ryan as president, which is, I honestly don't think it's going to happen. Paul Ryan as president sounds so fucking absurd to me. Although Donald Trump as president sounded so fucking absurd to me for such a long time that, anything is possible, I suppose. But I think the Russia thing ultimately comes down to Democrats and liberals and people on the left side of the aisle avoiding the real issues, one of which is the Electoral College, which I think is going to be what should be taken on in the long term once Trump is a distant memory. I think the Electoral College is still an example of a thing that makes it really, really, really hard for Democrats to win elections sometimes. And again, I don't really buy into that two-party political system, but at least at this current moment with the alt-right and everything that's swirling around the Republican Party, I do think that, there is definitely more to like in the Democrats than the Republicans. But the real problem, without even looking at the Electoral College, which again I think is the big long-term goal that needs to be dismantled. God knows how that would even happen, but I do think that it's worth trying. more worthy, at least, than, you know, doing this Russia election thing for the next 3 years. But the real problem that Democrats are trying to avoid talking about by, you know, deflecting to Russia, blaming the American electorate for being sucked into that propaganda. Because again, nobody's saying Russia manipulated vote tallies. So if Russia, you know, influenced the election, it had to be because Americans are stupid and susceptible to Russian propaganda, which is not the thing you want to be telling your voter base. But I think the real problem, apart from Russia, Electoral College, any of that bullshit that I mentioned thus far, is Hillary Clinton herself. The fact that we, as people who mostly identify with the left, at least in terms of the 2016 election, had as a candidate probably one of the worst examples of a Democratic candidate in terms of relation to the party's actual values in recent memory. And now you might be wondering what the hell I fucking mean by that, Hillary being one of the worst representatives of the Democratic Party in recent memory. But I'll explain, as you know, I hope I would do, considering I'm making a video about it. Hillary Clinton, on the surface, like most Democrats, seems to have it all right. She seems to be very good on, to some degree, economic policy and, you know, social policy as well. She favors healthcare. She favors, you know, democratization and state sponsorship of a lot of government programs. Excuse me, far more so than her Republican counterparts, so to speak. But, you know, so on the domestic issues, on the domestic side of things, Hillary Clinton seems okay. But the thing is, she also seems like the status quo. And this is one of the things that I have talked about, you know, or not even necessarily talked about, but has been going around in my head for years and years, which is the fact that if you can turn around and in the very next election after you leave office, you are not, you know, prohibited in any legal way, shape, or form to have either your spouse, your vice president, your cabinet members, if any member of your administration can turn around in the very next election and run for president to basically continue this line, it honestly, I believe, truly devalues the office of the American president. You know, Hillary Clinton, her husband was president up until the year 2000. So it hasn't even been 2 decades since a Clinton was a president. The fact that anybody would allow or think we need another Clinton president within that short amount of time is utterly ridiculous. The fact that you would think that, or that so many people think we need just another, you know, a clone of Obama or a continuation of the Obama legacy basically is problematic, because yes, the Obama legacy does stand for you know, certain you know, progressive issues on social policy. It stands for, you know, under Obama's tenure, gay marriage got passed. We expanded Medicare and health programs. All of that is good, but the Obama legacy also stands for a lot of bad shit. It stands for supporting the Zionist movement of Israel and Israel's government, just like the Bush administration did. It supports unlawful drone strikes, even more so than the Bush administration did. The foreign policy of the Obama administration is just as much of a nightmare as any American foreign policy has been since the 1960s, for fuck's sake, when we started fucking around with Iran, or Iran, I guess is the proper pronunciation, but you get what I mean. But we've been fucking around in that region for decades and decades and decades, 50, 60 years now, maybe almost, 60 years about. And, you know, Obama didn't show any signs of stopping. He brought us corn for popping kids from fucking orbit with his drones. Not that drones are actually in orbit, but, you know, unconstitutional drone strikes, civilian casualties, not disclosing the full numbers of civilian casualties, trying to paint his administration as, you know, being great, and you know he has this nice public face. I mean, it doesn't seem that nice to me, because I will always remember, and I think I've mentioned this in a prior video as well, there's this one video of Obama sitting at a table, you know, being filmed from the side as if he's not paying attention, and he has a glass of milk and he has a cookie, and he puts the cookie in, he tries to dip it in the milk, and the rim of the glass is too tight for him to fit the cookie in, and he goes, "Oh, thanks, Obama." And so he, you know, again, I mean, maybe there is some truth to the idea that Americans are stupid and susceptible, because people thought the fact that he was in this video, not this video specifically, but he did all this kind of, jokey social media shit like this, like the example I just gave. He made, Spotify playlists and listened to Kendrick Lamar. So everybody thinks he's the fucking cool president, and it just ruffles my feathers to no end that people perceive him as the cool president when he is, in my eyes at least, the unconstitutional drone assassination president. Like I said, to an even greater degree than George W. Bush was, which is, a pretty impressive feat. It's like Obama took the evolutions in technology that happened in his tenure and used them basically to their full effect, as George W. Bush would have most certainly done had he been able to legally serve a third and fourth term. So Obama, to me, represents a change in domestic policy that is positive, but not a change or even just an expansion into the realm of shit that is terrible, terrible United States foreign policy. And that is why a continuation of the Obama legacy is not what we needed. Like I said, not only does having a cabinet member run in the next election just generally devalue the office of the presidency, regardless of who he or she is or what party they're from, it just does not jive with the idea that we need to continue Obama's specific legacy by having Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton also is extremely flawed by the fact that she gives speeches to Goldman Sachs. And yes, I suppose there is a kind of, populist logic to, oh, well, if Goldman Sachs were offering you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do like an hour or two of speaking and questions, then yeah, you'd probably go for it too. But on the surface, it just degrades trust. The fact that you are a wealthy person, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are extremely wealthy, and you will take that money when you most certainly do not need it, and you can probably raise that much in one night of fundraising. So even if you say you're going to give it to charity or whatever, which I don't think she has, but even if she said she was going to give it to charity, interfacing with those people is just a black mark on her record. You shouldn't have that kind of association if you want to be trusted as a populist person. And of course, Hillary Clinton deflects and says that, oh, people who hate Wall Street and people who follow Bernie just have unrealistic expectations. But I don't think that, there are some, pipe dreamers who follow Bernie and who followed Bernie in the 2016 election, of course, as there are who follow any candidate. But I don't think that believing that America can learn things from basically every other civilized nation that guarantees things like basic health care and shelter to people and expand the programs that we already have that attempt to do that, I don't think that's a pipe dream. I don't think that America's too big to scale that to our country. I don't think it is any kind of pipe dream that Hillary might want to dismiss it as, to say that people who supported Bernie had a more concrete idea of what they wanted than people who just said, okay, let's support Hillary. I'm with her because she represents Obama, and Obama was good to me because maybe my health care premiums went down or what have you. But I'm not even going to bother taking a second to consider what Obama's policies and Hillary Clinton's future policies that she made no attempt to distance herself from would mean for people in the Middle East that we've been ravaging as a country, not only for Obama's entire presidency, but for Bush's presidency and many, many presidents before him. So it's a very America first. It's weird because it is a very America first attitude to, hitch your wagon, I'm going to use that again, hitch your wagon to Hillary and Obama when they basically only represent positive change for America. And honestly, even the change they represented for America, or Obama represented for America specifically, it was kind of undersold. Or oversold rather, and it, kind of underperformed rather in reality. You have this guy comes in there, first black president, hope and change and all that shit. What really changed for the people who are interfacing with our military in the Middle East? Nothing changed for them. It's a very, like I said, America first ideology, which is why neoliberals like Obama and Hillary and neoconservatives like Donald Trump and his cadre of, cronies and shit, they are not very dissimilar in terms of what they mean for people outside of this country. There's just a difference of opinion between neoliberals and neoconservatives as to how best to, run our own nation. Because, other nations bomb the fuck out of them. Both parties all for endless, perpetual warfare, unconstitutional, over borders, drone strikes. Nobody in the 2016 elections represented a change from that policy. And that, I think, is pretty much evidence of why democracy itself in America is broken by the two-party system. But really, like I said, the only difference between the Trump administration and the Obama administration / the potential Hillary Clinton administration that we'll never know now, is, one of them believes in socialized medicine and, taking from the rich and having them pay their quote unquote fair share of taxes. And the other one believes in trickle down economics. I do believe the Democrats and the neoliberals even win there because, trickle down economics does not work. It has been demonstrated time and time again that when you give tax breaks to companies and rich people, they never, ever, ever turn it back around and use that tax break and those increased gains to increase salaries of workers at all levels or hire more people. They just turn around and give it to the board and the shareholders in terms of dividends. Trickle-down economics does not work. The Democrats do have the right of it on that area of domestic policy. But again, when you look at the Obama administration and Hope and Change, Obama presided over this big fucking bank bailout. He didn't do anything to break up the banks or, combat their influence. He basically gave them a free pass. People still, who caused that Great Recession have not been, in any way, shape, or form held accountable. So again, even though Obama and Hillary nominally believe in more socialization and government programs than Trump does, in the end, the difference is not nearly what you would imagine. The Democrats have the appearance of being more populist and more ethical, but at the end of the day, these are people who, everybody in the cabinet, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, basically everybody in that sphere also is very friendly with Wall Street. They go give speeches, they go, make talks and get donations, and they're just as ensconced in the political insider world as anybody else. And that's what makes Hillary Clinton, or made Hillary Clinton, a flawed candidate, an extremely flawed candidate, because what she did, in essence, was she put her desire to have either her or her spouse be the leader of the fucking free world twice in 20 years over the fact of the matter that Bernie was having big gains. He was far more popular with the poor people who eventually swung towards Trump because they were dissatisfied with Clinton. She put her own egoistic desire for not only a Clinton dynasty, but an Obama administration dynasty over an actual candidate who had clear, demonstrable staying power with the people who ultimately became the most influential demographic in the 2016 election. And that kind of desire to have a political dynasty, a political in-crowd where, when one person runs out of presidential terms, one of their cabinet members runs and continues that, and then that person's cabinet continues it, and then their spouses continue it sometimes. That desire that devalues so much the idea of American democracy and the office of the American president is just what drove Hillary Clinton to be such a flawed candidate. Honestly, how can you blame the Russians? How can you blame the Electoral College even when you lost to a person who was caught on tape admitting that he uses his power and status to basically grope women without their consent? How do you lose to that and blame the Russians? How do you lose to that? And honestly, the only two people to lay the blame on are the American electorate, if you think they're that stupid. And I'm sure, yeah, there are plenty of stupid people out there. There are plenty of people who are chauvinistic and don't care that we have the fucking pussy grabber sexual predator in chief. There are a lot of stupid people out there. But if you as a human being lost the most powerful office in the world to somebody who is a sexual predator, and has admitted so on tape and bragged about it, then who do you lay the blame at? Whose feet do you lay the blame at other than yourself if you're Hillary Clinton? I mean, she comes out here and writes this book, What Happened? I haven't read the book, of course, but I guarantee you she tries to put the blame on other sources far, far more than she decides to blame herself. Hillary Clinton is not some fucking feminist social justice icon. Bernie Sanders is. He lived his values. I don't necessarily know that he would have been able to accomplish much of what he said, but at least he meant what he said. He didn't take money from bankers because he didn't want that tainted shit. He, like I said, lived his values. He, didn't call black people super predators in the 90s. So Bernie Sanders was a true candidate that no matter what you thought of his ability to actually get shit done, would have represented an actual change because he would actually be in line with the non-neoliberal values of the American, of millennials and the American electorate on the Democrat side in general. But Hillary thought that her dynastic ambitions were more important. And, that's the tragedy of the 2016 election, honestly, because it ultimately was, she gave herself enough rope to hang herself by. And all she had to do was, come out there and, shit on the, desires of Bernie supporters, call them, fanciful and a pipe dream and unrealistic. And now Democrats are doing that at large by saying, oh yeah, Americans are just dummies who got fooled by the Russians. So Democrats are just the party, I suppose, of shooting themselves in their own goddamn feet. It does not bode well for 2020. I mean, I think Trump has been so bad that we probably will have a Democratic president in 2020. But, I never thought up until election night, I never thought that Trump would win. So, you never know what's going to happen in this country. People are, self-defeating and greedy on both sides. And it just seems like, we're not in a very good place in terms of American democracy, in terms of the slightly more sane party winning in this two-party system. And I just don't have a whole hell of a lot of hope for this country, honestly, because I think we're just, in a lot of ways that I've described in this video, just too far gone. But yeah, I'm obviously Jesus. This is the video. I will see you next week. Fuck. And it occurs to me now that I totally forgot, amidst this whole year of crazy shit, to mention James Comey and his impact on the 2016 election. Probably did have more of an impact than Russia in the end because it was shit on Hillary coming from inside the house, so to speak. But honestly, even though the email server obviously isn't nearly as big of a deal as the pussy-grabbing tape, still, how hard is it to just use email in accordance with the law? How do you blame anybody else for that? And I'm actually reading a passage here online right now where she talks about Barack Obama in some indirect way being at fault for her, not because he had a shitty legacy on foreign policy that she was implicated in because she was Secretary of State, but because he didn't make a televised address to the nation in 2016 that our democracy was under attack. Maybe more Americans would have woken up to the threat in time, is what she says, a direct quote from the book. But again, if Russia wasn't actually meddling vote numbers, then it's your responsibility as the candidate to be able to beat somebody who is on tape saying that he's basically a sexual predator, Mexicans, a rapist, etc., etc. You all know the fucking laundry list of shit that Donald Trump has said. How do you, if you fail to convince people to go into that poll booth and write a check mark in your name box rather than that guy's box, how do you blame anybody else for that? How is democracy under attack if the democratic process yielded the result of Donald Trump being president? Again, you have to either blame Americans directly, not Russia, or blame yourself for being so flawed. It's so fucking stupid. It's, I don't know. I'm just going to repeat myself here again and again if I keep going, but it's ridiculous. Thanks for watching / listening. I'm obviously Jesus. See you next week.